welcome to the Student Roundtable discussion, The Way Forward for Students. We're here at the University of Thornloe, and we'd like to thank the university for welcoming us here. And I'd like to invite the president, Mr. John Gibault, to come and say a few words.
Well, bienvenue de nouveau à l'Université Thornloe.
The camera's right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you got to stand here.
Yeah.
Camera's right there.
Alors, bienvenue de nouveau à l'Université Thornloe. Je m'appelle John Gibault, le président pour l'instant de cette institution anciennement fédérée avec la Laurentienne. Je ne suis point votre hôte, vous n'êtes point nos invités, nous sommes ici comme partenaires. So welcome back to Thornloe University. We gathered as partners in this work and in this demonstration and in these conversations. And we do so not just for ourselves, but for our colleagues and those who come after us. So, bonne séance.
Merci. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our members here that we have. J'aimerais introduire nos panélistes. Alors, on va commencer par ce côté-ci, si tu peux te présenter.
Hi, my name is Hemlise. I am a third-year student at Laurentian University, politics and law. Et mon nom est Hemlise. Je suis une étudiante en troisième année en sciences politiques à l'Université de Laurentian.
Salut, my name is Andrew. I'm a field worker with the Canadian Federation of Students, and I'm also currently a student at the University of Toronto. And it's my first time here in Sudbury ever, and I'm very, very pleased to be a part of this and to kind of talk to all the students that have been severely affected by the cuts that happened last year.
Well, my name is Philippe Mathieu. I'm the editor for the Francophone student newspaper, L'Orient Déchaîné. Je suis également dans ma 6e année ici à l'Université de Laurentienne, inscrit au baccalauréat d'éducation, donc à l'École des sciences de l'éducation, enseignant diplômé dans le programme Maintenant disparu de musique. Et puis maintenant, je vais présenter M. Chad.
Parfait. Donc, moi, c'est Chad. Je suis dans mon 3e diplôme ici à la Laurentienne, à l'École des sciences d'éducation, et je représente à la fois en tant que sénateur étudiant pour l'AEF, ainsi que le premier ministre, comme on dit, du gouvernement étudiant de l'École des sciences d'éducation ici à Sudbury.
Annie, bonjour. I'm Denise. I'm a third-year student of Equity, Diversity, Human Rights, which is quite hilarious, living the reality of CCAA.
Yeah.
My program no longer has diversity, so I hope that we can have a way forward for my son, the next generation, and the people of Sudbury.
Well, thank you all for coming. And before we get started, Andrew would like to start off with a few words.
Sure. So this is a speech that I spoke this last night at our solidarity event, so I will also just speak it right now. So as I've introduced myself before, my name is Andrew Kessick, and I'm here on behalf of the Canadian Federation of Students, Ontario. I'm also a student myself, albeit at the University of Toronto, and so, as I also said before, it is my first time here in Sudbury and actually in Northern Ontario in general. So the Federation represents 538,000 students across the country in all levels of study, including students at Laurentian University. Unfortunately, many of those students who could have been here are unable to be with us because of the destructive process that forced them out. Students continue to see the impacts of the CCAA on their education in Sudbury and Northern Ontario as a whole. I spent the day yesterday walking around campus and talking with Annelise, and we discussed how things were before the cuts and how they are now. We discussed the beauty of the green space around campus, especially how it looks in the winter with the snow covering all the trees, and how the administration wants to sell it all off. It It has been over 1 year since the CCAA was announced, and cuts continue to happen at Laurentian. The CCAA has no end in sight. As well, students across Ontario have had their eyes on Laurentian University and have begun to make the connections between the cuts here and the creeping privatization of education they are seeing on their own campuses. I've heard from students at different universities and colleges that their administrations threaten them with a Laurentian situation. The Canadian Federation of Students has long called for a free public education system without barriers, such as tuition fees. The Federation has also demanded that education be fully funded by the provincial and federal governments and not leave education up to market forces. This demand is especially important in the conversation about access to education in several different languages. Students and faculty should never have to choose between learning in their language or attending post-secondary education in their region. Students and faculty should never have to worry about whether or not their studies that they have dedicated themselves to in a language that they have spoken all their lives is actually profitable enough. A fully funded education system with funding from the federal and provincial governments is the only way to ensure access to education is not put in jeopardy. Institutions must also never rely on international students' tuition fees or corporate funding, and the government must immediately fund public education. The Federation unequivocally supports the Tricultural Committee for University Education at Sudbury. The Federation also stands behind the Tricultural Committee's Reconciliation Declaration. We call for an end to the CCAA process, for the restoration of public education in Northern Ontario, and for a democratic and transparent Laurentian University. Most importantly, the trilateral approach will give students the opportunity to live and learn in their own language and culture and reproduce it in an institution that serves their community. In this way, universities can remain a place of belonging, exploration, and growth rather than becoming solely a means by which students may attain a certification on their resume. Education is to be holistic. The Federation also stands with all faculty, staff, and other workers, as well as students who've been affected by the cuts. We also recognize education as a treaty right, and the CCAA is a continuation of the unequal Robinson-Huron Treaty that was signed under duress in 1850. Most importantly, education in Northern Ontario must be by and for the Franco-Ontarian community, the Indigenous community, and the Anglophone community. From across Ontario to Sudbury, solidarity.
Well, thank you, merci, Andrew. So with that being said, let's start with our first question, and I'm going to start actually with Chad. So Chad, what was your reaction when the programs were cut? And what is your reaction now that it has been over a year since the CCAA was announced?
Oh, amazing. You actually repeat the second part of the question, but after. But I was shocked as everybody else because obviously we didn't know when the date was going to be or that it was going to happen that day. Was I shocked it was happening? Absolutely not. This was something, I mean, I even had discussions, I mentioned in my speech yesterday during my bachelor's degree where I warned professors because, I mean, the rumors have been spreading for years. This isn't something that happened overnight. So for that to be said, I have to say that I was not surprised. Well, disappointed. I didn't expect it to be what it was going to be. I expected it to be some rules, some common sense, some logic, some logistics, statistics, anything, but it seems like someone just grabbed a box and randomly picked some programs and and then kept some, deleted some, threw some out, and ever since then, it's been a downward spiral. Is there a second part to that question?
Yeah, I guess. Are you surprised that we're still in the CCAA?
No,
it's
no.
been extended.
That's true. So every single time I knew that it wasn't going to be like that. We have a lot of bureaucracy here in all ways, shapes, forms. I'm just surprised that they've been allowed to continue to push it. Normally, there's like rules and a limit, but hopefully it comes to an end extremely soon. But no, I'm not surprised, because even when it comes to other enterprises and stuff, when they go through this, it drags on for years often.
Mhm.
But I hope we get to some form of resolution as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that would like to add anything to that?
Maybe
Share their
yes.
experience.
Yeah, same thing. I was shocked because half of my program has been cut too.
Mhm.
So it was like a sad decision because I was like in the bus and then they sent a list of all the programs and I was like reading and I was like, oh my God, my program has been cut. What will I do? Like, you know, it hasn't been easy for us. So.
Absolutely. I feel that. Yeah, do you have anything
I
to
was
add?
quite naive, so listening to you, I feel, wow, I was super shocked. And reading that list, I had to like read it and then stop for a minute and read it again. Oh no, I can't believe it. And my program was not on there, but obviously the implication. I completed my first degree in gerontology, which is through Huntington. So as soon as we had news, no federated partnership. Okay, what happens to me in my first degree?
Yeah.
Then my second one, equity, diversity, human rights, had 5, it was like a multidiscipline program, which relied on Thornwell, on Huntington and U of S.
Yeah.
So, okay, all of it, they're not even mentioned. So even more shocking that, okay, I'm not mentioned. Does that mean I'm safe? Obviously not, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I was not that surprised because I actually experienced it a year before it happened. I wanted to sign up for kind of the third level of teaching there, as we say there, where you certify for grades 7 to 12. And I found out at the time that I was applying, I had just graduated the music program, and I was, it was my plan for the last 4 years to get into that program that was offered here. And I go on the WAC website there, where you go to apply for a new program, and it just said right there it was not offered anymore. And I was like, I didn't get an email or there was no press release or anything like that. I was like, well, that totally like sidetracked everything there. So I ended up certifying myself grades 4 to 10. Not my first choice because I'd like to teach at that higher level, but like still pretty inconvenient. And then a year later, we see that happened, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, okay, all right. And my experiences, like I mentioned before, it was in music, but it was also in geography. Both of those departments are now gone. I have a minor in geography and a specialization in music. And now I look at my degree that's like, it's like on my wall, and it obviously, I learned a lot and I had a great memories and great experiences, but it almost feels kind of like worthless to like some point, to like a small point, because it's like none of that exists anymore. It's like an extinct dinosaur. You know what I mean? So was I surprised? A little, but it kind of really sidetracked me a bit there. So Andrew, do you have anything to add? Was the CFS surprised by this?
Honestly, I don't think so, because I think for like we've seen like cuts happening to education like for many years now, and then especially with the tuition freezes. Sure, tuition is frozen, but while it's frozen, they're still cutting it every year. And so for a lot of schools, it's been, okay, let's raise international students' tuition. That's why some international students are paying. I literally was talking to some international students the other day who were like, yeah, I pay $60K a year. I'm like, are you serious? And so a lot of like the funds come from that. And so when there's no international student enrollment, then that's another funding source that's just pulled out. Not that international students should be like a financial backstop in the first place, but that's another, it becomes sort of like a domino effect almost. And then plus the pandemic happened, and none of us could have predicted that, but I'm sure that had education been a priority, then, and had been well funded, then at least that there could have been like those financial bolsters against the crisis that happened. And then this situation, it might not have been in the same, might not have gone in the same way. It might not have even happened. We don't know. We can't go back and change this, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely is not something that just started. Like you said you weren't surprised. Like you kind of saw almost like the writing on the wall already. And then, some students were surprised and some were not. And I think like for those who saw the writing on the wall, it's like, well, maybe there's something could have been done that it wouldn't have been like this. And, and kind of like generating like, okay, so what do we then do to, either restore it or, but also make sure that this never happens again, because no students should have to go through this, right?
Agreed. Well, thanks for that, Andrew. Maintenant, je vais aller de ce côté-ci avec ma prochaine question. Alors, selon toi, qu'est-ce que tu penses devrait être fait ou considéré pour ramener, genre, la dignité à une éducation francophone dans le nord de l'Ontario? Qu'est-ce que tu penses de ça?
Je pense déjà être honnête avec les étudiants et les professeurs de ce qui se passe et reconnaître que le français est une langue qui mérite d'être comme au même niveau que l'anglais. Je pense que c'est au niveau de la reconnaissance déjà. Ça passe par un processus. Il faut que ce soit reconnu d'abord que le français est important. Et ensuite, parler aux étudiants, que les étudiants soient au courant de la situation, que les professeurs soient au courant de la situation. Puis, valoriser les programmes en français, que les programmes en français soient valorisés pour qu'ils puissent revenir, pour que les étudiants puissent avoir confiance en l'administration. Je pense que ce sera un bon début pour moi.
No, absolument. So, common themes for that, right, is honesty, truth from the board, transparency,
Recognition.
Respect.
right? Would you like to add to that? So what needs to be brought or considered for basically bringing back dignity, let's say, to even Indigenous education, Northern Ontario, and Francophone education? Did you have anything to add? She mentioned, lots of things about truth and honesty and transparency. What do you think of that?
I was thinking also when Andrew was talking about this pandemic as a smokescreen, or it's basically what happened with us.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have the resources, you have like a huge number of intelligent people studying and planning your futures.
Yeah.
And why not ask us? You definitely could have had a lot of brainstorming, a lot of ideas come up.
Why not contact the finance department? Have some discussions there.
Yeah, well, that's
But it's just disrespectful, right? Disrespectful to us. Okay, we're investing, like, this is not funded completely, so this is our hard-earned money that we're putting into this. So at least show respect for what you're luring us here to do. And with Francophone and Indigenous, I'm Anglophone, so this was my connection to other communities. Now you've completely divided us. We have no longer, everybody's fighting for their own little way to survive, and now you've disconnected all of us. So you talk about like a tricultural initiative of the university, you've actually done the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Driven it back like 100 years.
Yes, I think we're all on the same
Crazy.
boat with that.
Yeah.
Chad, did you have anything?
Yeah, I'll go in English again, even though I speak French.
Sure.
Just so everybody understands. Because the message is, we've always struggled to have recognition. Now, of course, people can come and you can talk about logistics, and there's 500,000 Francophone people in Ontario, a little bit more now. I think it's gone up, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. Some people leave, some people stay, some are international, some are national, depends. We've always been through this constant fight, and I understand, like, the discussion isn't, are we going to have 900 programs and 20 times the funding as other people and 75 Francophone universities? That's not the question. We didn't ask for that. We're not asking for the moon. We're not asking for these ridiculous projects that make no sense. We're asking for a post-secondary institution. We have Université Franco-Ontarienne, which is in Toronto, Université de Hearst. They are geographically far from many of the communities. Sudbury had it with Laurentian, so it was amazing. And then you had Ottawa. Now Laurentian, sorry, in my opinion, is like the few Francophone initiatives that exist are on their way out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope they can change it. I am optimistic for them. But I really believe there needs to be, I forget the word in English, okay, so network done between the geographic regions. So either a partnership with Université de Hearst, Université Franco-Ontarienne, if Université d'Ottawa wants to be in there, sure, likely not, but and then definitely we need to save the Francophone institution of the University of Sudbury, University of Sudbury here in Sudbury. And then obviously, I can see that partnership going cross-line from just the French language, but also with the other universities that had to unfortunately leave the federation, which we're standing in at the moment. But I think it's possible, and especially with technology now. There's no reason that has to be at one spot, and you can have tinier campuses, and because a lot of stuff. I mean, we learned it with Zoom and our programs and everything. Networking is possible.
Hybrid courses still exist.
Absolutely, even sharing between the three of them, and I think it would be done in a way that would promote not only the economy of the different regions, but also do what every political party and every group wants, and it's to gain some votes. And I think the Francophone community deserves its recognition, and we keep fighting for it. And I mean, if you could be the political party to come in and save the day, I mean, you're going to have 500,000 plus allies of people that are going to be pretty happy regardless of party lines.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, it's not asking for the moon.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right. I have a follow-up question. You said you were talking about a network between Francophone schools, like within the province. Did you mean a relationship with Laurentian and them, or everyone else altogether?
Well,
to kind of build up together.
I'm very mad at Laurentian, but we must always learn to forgive. But you don't just forgive with empty promises and words and signage, as I said for those that listen yesterday. I think there are initiatives that can be done, and if they begin, some reparations, then that would be great. But I'm talking about those that were cut out from here, and they have partners that are ready to exist. They're just waiting for funding, and I think that would be a very good initiative. One day, when Laurentian's ready, does that mean, I would be against a partnership with the Francophone Network University, whatever you want to call it, with Laurentian? No, I would love that. But right now, I mean, they have issues and they need to get over them. They need a few reparations. But from there, I think, there's options to go forward.
Yeah.
But I hope that answers in a clear way.
Yeah, I think so. Like if I can add to that, maybe now is not the time for Laurentian to, they need to rebuild themselves, right? They need clearly they need some attention there.
They can begin once this is done and this is resolved.
Yeah.
They can begin the process. The minute this is done, this is resolved, and they can start getting their things together, then I think it's ready for a kickstart.
Yeah.
But build on your strengths, not build on what showboating and what looks good to the public, right?
Exactly.
That's not realistic.
No, it's not. And
so you're not going to be able to rebuild it. You're never going to have trust if you're trying to rebuild just on signage.
Yeah.
Put up another sign. Oh, sure, we're very Indigenous.
Yeah,
that's not enough.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you guys. I'm looking at this question, and the first thing that I thought of was for heaven's sakes, recognize l'Université de Sudbury. It's not a complicated thing to do, and I'm talking to you, the province here. So I'm looking at you here, the political parties. It's not complicated. Help them out, because there's so many people behind this initiative and behind the school. And you know what? We need somewhere to go. We can't just sit around here with our tail in our hands. We need to, kids need to go to school somewhere, and they're sure as frig not gonna get it here in Laurentian, because if you look at some of the things that are not offered anymore, basic things like math.
That's the big one.
Math. Math.
That sounds embarrassing.
Physics. I mentioned geography. That's
history. History at university without a history department.
Philosophy.
Without a philosophy department.
Without women gender studies in 2022 in Canada. Oh my God.
Political science.
Yeah.
That's a big one too.
It's a big one.
Democracy without.
Yeah.
We're living in a country that have universities without poli-sci. It's impossible.
I did an interview with an old philosophy professor here, because with my other job, I'm a journalist for Le Voyageur as well, and he released this book about elective courses and the importance of elective courses, and how if you go to this school and they don't offer interesting courses for you, courses that let you explore your strengths, your weaknesses, your potential interests, you're not going to really offer them anything of value that much, because a part of going to this to university is to figure out who you are, right? Like you could take, see, like what I did. I was in phys ed beforehand, and I found out that actually I was a much better fit for music. I actually took an elective course with Alan Walsh before I even got into the music program. I took the history of jazz, and that was like, oh. Now if that course wasn't offered, I don't know what would have happened. You know, it's little things like that, and you know, like just offer some kind of courses. You know, like the current administration is kind of bragging about how, oh well, you know, like we cut these programs, yes, but we're offering, you know, like some of the best courses from it. You know, well, you take a look at the list of courses offered. Where are the cool classes? There's no beginner classes to anything really, right? There's no introduction to anything. Even the basic. I'm going to bring it back to geography there because that's what I know. If you look at like the basic geography courses, intro to physical geography and to human geography, French and in English, it's not offered anymore. You know, you look at the département d'études françaises, there's not really much there anymore. So it's like, what do the kids get to pick? Honestly, not very much. I have a friend who spoke to some architecture students, and he was telling me about how much of a difficulty they're having picking elective courses because they're stuck between this whole, yeah, well, you know, I want to take a French course, but I have nothing that fits in my schedule, right? Because they have so many mandatory courses and they feel like this. So they have a strict schedule. They can't find anything to get in there. So even it's just a little, it's like, it could be just as little as like offering like at least something, right? That's the point I'm trying to make is like at least offer something, not offer nothing, right? Even if it's just a course here and there. That's what I think. Anyways, Andrew, what do you have to add to that?
Honestly, like the thing that I'm also thinking about is like as you've kind of gone through your studies here at you know what's left of it if you're still here or if you were a student before the cuts as well. If you can kind of think, like I'm sure you've been in conversation with like your friends and your colleagues, your classmates, what have you seen about like the change in their reactions, like at first and then now, like how has it been like different in terms of like what are they saying now? Because we're hearing one thing from the administration, and that this I'm going to reference a line from an article that I read several months ago, where the president had said that he walks down the hallways now and he sees that students have a spark, a twinkle in their eyes, despite them wearing masks. He can see past that. He sees that they have a twinkle in their eyes, and I think. Man, that's because they're crying. Yes, that's not a happiness twinkle. I'll tell you that. But so I hear that, and I'm told, you know, that's
It's cheap marketing, not to cut you off.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. Like, I'd love to hear like we're hearing that. It's like that's the admin story.
Mhm.
But then the students, I heard from in that same article, they discussed how students actually are, you know, kind of using humor to kind of cope with it, but it's like, oh, well, we're at a bankrupt university, so
Mhm.
well, you know, what can we do? That's what I've heard, but I would love to hear about like, well, how you've seen what others have been saying. But yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to hijack this, but I work also in the education system, despite in addition to my studies, and also I talk to a lot of people. One thing is the lack or loss of their reputation. For the first time I'm seeing not just Francophones, that was another thing. People like, oh, well, see, they could just go to University of Ottawa all along. So why?
Oh.
It's not even them. It's even the Anglophone students that still have options here. Like, let's be really do. I mean, is there many? No, it's been
No, but
significantly
there's some.
impacted, but there's something. And even them, they're doing the decision to, well, okay, they did it to them. Sure, they cut them off. You know, we expected that, but you know, is my department next? So the reputation needs to be rebuilt, and there are ways of doing that. You can look at examples from enterprises or anything of any other concept. elsewhere to see how you do that. Like this is a field in itself. And up to date, we haven't seen it. Maybe it's because of this whole process, but because already I'm sure the numbers will continue to dwindle. And, okay, sure, Tina from Toronto is not going to come to Sudbury now because she's scared, but the people from Sudbury are leaving.
Yeah.
And that's, some voluntarily have before, obviously, but what I mean is like at a record numbers. And the promotion, even in the schools for Laurentian, is not very high. And not only for Francophone teachers in both public and Catholic Francophone school systems, but also in English Catholic and English public. So it's not just, people tend to look at it and go, oh, it's a Francophone issue,
No,
it's not. It's affecting the whole city, the whole community, the different groups within. It's
heavy.
Stressful. That's what it is.
It's heavy, right?
I don't know. They need a plan of some sort because.
Yes.
An example. Can I give an example of a very, very on the ground level of what we're seeing as the difference? Because we're talking about bigger pictures, obviously, going forward. But I think something that is overlooked, and I see it every single day, and it frustrates me that is not recognized. Every email we get from administration with the nonsense emails, I'd like to print them all out and make rolls of toilet paper and sell it because it's hilarious. But every time, I think you need to sit in the classrooms, you need to join the student conversation, need to see what happens. For example, with now that there are no electives, like you were saying, you need a choice. You need to, okay, we have women here, we have Indigenous students here, we have French-speaking students here. You need something for us to do that we can connect with.
Yeah.
So now that you have such limited options, gerontology is the go-to. That's the last extra elective, but you have, normally I'd say our classes are probably 50 to 75. Now we're 125.
Yeah.
And more than 50% of them have zero interest in gerontology. They're taking level 3,000 or 4,000 level courses and then bitching and complaining.
Awesome.
Complaining about how it's so difficult, or the expectations are too high, or I don't know how to write at this level, or I don't understand the concepts. Of course, because it isn't your program, you've never taken it before. If you're a first year student, why are you taking a 4,000 level course and then complaining that it's too difficult?
Yeah.
But they really don't have a choice. That's what the conversation ends up. I need an elective, I need to fill it. This is the only one I can get. So it's really a struggle for those of us that, I'm very passionate about gerontology, and that's where my career is headed. So I find it very disrespectful to the population that exists in Ontario, the million people that we have that are over 65. How disrespectful is it that you're just an elective, or you're just a problem for me to study? So I think that's on the ground, one of many examples.
I would actually like to elaborate on that.
Sure.
Just on this. So I was saying earlier, I'm been a teacher both in contract supply teaching and now in my placements because I'm officially becoming qualified. One of the things that I'm surprised that we didn't see is normally with this, you have what I call this fake transparency that you should see. If an institution or anybody doesn't want to be actually transparent, there's the illusion of doing it. Businesses will be like, oh, well, we had meetings with the community. Oh, we're hosting this event. Oh, here's a question box or complaint box. Something to give the illusion oh my God. And we haven't even seen that, which to me is weird. In a way, it's very honest. So I'm not complaining, but we would expect it, because I'm going to give the example of me as a teacher. So my teacher actually just told me this today. She goes, I really like how when you're with your student, you communicate with them, you give them options, you ask about their interests first, and you mold it for them specifically, and you give the illusion that they have the choice. Because at the end of the day, my stuff is done. Yes, I might have options or projects or work or text to read or whatever, but at the end of the day, I have to follow the curriculum, it's the law. So, but I can still do it in a way where I'm interacting with them, asking them questions, and to the child, I'm super involved. And we didn't even see that. So I'm expecting because at one point, we tend to go through this panic stage where we start with this, I'll call it fake transparency, fake communication or dialogue. And slowly it turns into real dialogue, real communication, real, communication with time. But we haven't even seen that yet. I mean, sure, on signs and emails and whatever, but I mean actually real. And I know for a fact people on campus have not felt it. And whether it be the pandemic, not the pandemic, since we returned, I have seen no initiative. And I do invite them to do it, to be quite honest. Any type of communication, dialogue, whatever, even if you obviously can't promise anything because of the situation, at least showing the initiative for the
Yeah.
future would be appreciated, even if it didn't give 100% results.
Don't you remember? You're totally forgetting. We had a student conference. Don't you remember where Hache did this ridiculous student conference where all the microphones are muted? We can't speak. We're just listening to him ramble on with his complete and utter total bullshit, the same crap we've been reading in emails and just repeated it. You could submit a question and then there's this annoying little dude in the background. Sorry, whoever you were, I'm sure you're doing a very good job for what he wanted, but rewording the questions that we're submitting to be, and it's like we're begging Hache, could you please answer this question, and rewording what I asked.
Yeah.
No, how is that a conversation?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's not. That's why I said what I said.
Yeah.
No. And it's like, don't tell me how I'm feeling, right? Like all of this cheap marketing stuff. It's our students are okay, they're having a great time, the smile on their faces. Like, where are you seeing that? Don't tell me what I'm seeing is not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
One of my questions in that forum was, when are you going to acknowledge the suffering that some students still have? The people that are outside of your fictional 10% that you just randomly picked up a
George
box.
Orwell's 1984.
When are you going to acknowledge the suffering that students are still underway?
Yep.
Every time you send out an email that says everything is great, everything is wonderful, we have new students, yahoo, we're fantastic. That's another slap in the face to people who are in the middle of a program who can't get questions answered. I've been 1 year asking the question, how do I do this degree without all of the course options?
L'organisation, la communication de base, c'est la seule chose que vraiment, c'est un début, là, mais il faut qu'il commence parce que jusqu'à date, on ne l'a pas vu.
Ouais.
So,
C'est la transparence.
exactement ça.
And I think the worst part was for the first year student and third year. Because you're supposed to graduate next year and your program is being cut and you're like, okay, I'm supposed to graduate next year, so what will I do? And you're a first year student, you're brand new. I need to study, I need education. So,
And the announcement right before our exams?
Exactly.
Oh, that's brutal. That's
It's really stressful.
That's
Cruelty.
right.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
Oh,
Ça, c'était fou, là.
I remember that.
And
Did you hear
at
about
this-
that, Andrew?
One thing that I heard, I was talking to a different student, this was a couple months ago, and
Oh
is that literally being told like, oh, the announcement, yeah, so I had a final project coming up and my exams were coming up, and then I found out that my program was being cut, and I didn't want to do it anymore. Like I didn't want to
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
They said I almost had it done, but I didn't want to finish. That's what I heard
We had
directly. Yeah.
Zoom meetings with every one of our profs. We had to sit there as students. I mean, we have a respectful relationship that we build with professors. We had to be in a Zoom call and watch our professors cry, one after the other. Another Zoom meeting, another Zoom meeting, another Zoom meeting, watching tears fall from a person who is like our role model.
Yeah.
We're coming to you because we need help,
Yeah.
and you have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Some didn't even have information. They had to ask us, what's going on? What are you hearing? Can you forward me the emails?
Yeah.
How do you?
That's tough.
And especially international students, because I'm international student and I have a study permit. I'm supposed to study for 4 years. And if my program has been cut, so what will I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you
You've
do?
made
Well,
an
blessed
investment, a
to
life
like-
change,
Yeah.
for this.
Chad?
If they knew, c'est qu'ils savaient that the programs were going to be cut, they had to do this, whatever, some people told them, whatever the process is, especially for international students, because of the situation you just said, they should have come up with some sort of plan to at least phase the ones that are in out so that they can graduate to get everything done, like just a plan. Like, because what it seems is it was pretty much, well, fend for yourself.
Or have a transfer agreement in place before.
Or negotiate that as you're being told what to do. I understand the system isn't like they are being told what to do and they do some decisions from there. Anyways, but like that was inexcusable because it wouldn't have happened anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like if this would have been, I mean, highly unlikely, but the University of Toronto or the University of Ottawa or McMaster, that wouldn't have been the result.
Mm-hmm.
Évidemment, il y aurait eu un plan, il y aurait eu quelque chose en place avant où il y aurait communiqué. Peut-être que ça ne serait pas 100% concret et certain, mais il y aurait eu quelque chose pour commencer. Parce que là, c'était comme, on a coupé la tête sa poule, là, puis la poule, elle courait encore, là, puis la tête était à terre. En tout cas,
C'est une
c'était...
immigration je dirais, ça me fout un peu comme ton programme a été coupé. Qu'est-ce que tu dis à l'immigration?
Ouf.
Que mon programme a été coupé,
Mais
Tu dis quoi à l'immigration? Ils s'en foutent, comme ce qui se passe à Laurentienne, c'est pas leur problème.
Yeah.
Toi, tu as un permis d'études, tu es
Mhm.
censé étudier pour 4 ans. Sur ton permis d'études, c'est écrit OK, baccalauréat musique, puis
Mhm.
programme de musique est coupé. Tu dis quoi à l'immigration?
Mhm.
Tu es censé partir après tes 4 ans.
Mhm.
Puis là, tu es en première année, mon programme est coupé, puis on est au milieu des examens. Les demandes d'admission sont finies depuis janvier. Que ben, je fais quoi?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So she raised the point of, what do you tell students who immigrated here, right? They traveled internationally to come here just to get their program cut. Like, whoa.
And-
Right.
It's like you've used them from the first place by asking them to come here and promoting this as a real, international community. So that's your first mistake.
Yeah.
Then your second mistake is look forward.
Mhm.
Look forward 5 years in the future. What are you going to need if we're not publicly funded students? You need money.
Yeah.
It's like the main key ingredient for every university.
And the
International
thing is-
students bring in more money.
Yeah.
So at least have a plan. You're
Yeah.
screwing everybody that are going to be your target
Yeah.
5 years down the road.
Because as she was saying, the Ministry of Immigration, Citizenship, and Refugees, like what the university didn't, remember was like some people are like responsible or liable under certain conditions. Like they have to communicate they're under some requisitions for entry into the country, et cetera. And it's not just that, okay, Laurentian said, bye, at the end of the day, you could just leave, go somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
some people, they're already in a system, they have to follow the
Mhm.
steps.
Yeah.
There was pure disregard.
Yeah.
So like whether we use the example, like I said, of the Ministry of, so international students with the Ministry of Immigration, Citizenship, and Refugees, there are other places too. We could talk about Indigenous affairs, we could talk about this, blah, 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 blah. Things, people were affected regardless. What about students from the territories, Nunavut, Yukon, Northwest Territories that had to come to Ontario with the partnerships because they don't have universities there, et cetera. Like people were just thrown.
Mhm.
There was no reason. And they should have known that, yes, they have to make decisions, but that they should have also planned because some people have to meet certain criteria under certain things, like they were accepted into the program under X condition, something happened, but like you have to take them into consideration before you do all the decision. At least plan for some sort of
Some
process or
phase,
transfer or
Yeah.
phasing or
Yeah.
something just to help them. I'm not even talking about sending them to another university or anything like that, just something like sending a letter to the ministry or blah, 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 making it very clear that they're there to support, put an employee or someone that I'm sure they could have put to start the process, make sure they were supported throughout. There was nothing.
So I'll add one last comment before we move on to our next question. Let's not forget too, right? All of the faculty that depended on their job, their pension. They were gonna some of them were gonna retire. 5 years from now. That was their plan. Their plan was right. Just like a student who immigrated here. He was like, oh, I'm gonna do 4 years here. Well, done after first year, It's like all of these plans that were cut short. So I think this is a good time to segue into another question, which is, I'm actually going to go over here again. What kind of actions, as a person who's just about to be president of a student union, what kind of actions do you want to see from student unions? So what is kind of your plan towards that regard? Because I'm supposed to be critical of student unions. I got lots to say about that, and Andrew, I'm sure he does too, as part of the CFS and Chad as well. But I'm curious, as the president-elect, how do you kind of respond to this kind of coming into office?
About the cuts?
And everything kind of everything all together.
I think, to be honest with the students, be honest with me is the first key. Being honest, like tell them what happened. And communication. I think I can't take only decision for me because we are all students here. It's not only about me, it's about us. So if I take a decision, I need to make sure that this decision will affect you in a good way. So I think communication, being honest, and fight together. We are not like enemies. We are fighting together, so we need to fight together.
Well, kind of a follow-up question to that. I like me personally, as kind of I would like one of like the only like to like investigative journalists on
Mhm.
campus. Like I look at what people say, how people react, what they
Mhm.
put out in the press.
Mhm.
I haven't heard much of the student associations say much about that. So I could say even something as little as putting out a press release saying I'm not okay with this,
Mhm.
or I stand with so and so. I think personally would go a long ways.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not the president.
Yeah.
Not, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, stand for something said. I agree with that. I'm
Mhm.
against with that. What the administration is doing is bad.
Mhm.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And
What do you think, Andrew?
oh, I was
Go
just gonna
ahead.
say, and like,
Yeah.
I like, you also like are kind of going into this, like you're like you're starting your term very very soon, but you're going into it like knowing like post cuts. You're going
Yeah.
into it post cuts, and it's like you kind of have to. It's almost like you're trying to pick up the pieces, and it's
Yeah.
like, what can I do with the pieces? Whatever pieces are left, some are missing, some are totally lost, some they're not going to fit together the way that they used to. So like you're picking up the pieces, but you're also kind of like rearranging them in a
Yeah.
new way, and it's like, okay, you're looking at the past actions,
Mhm.
and you're also taking like, of course, you're also going in like with your own experience, like
Yeah.
your programs were literally cut,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you have the same experience
Yeah.
that the students like at large all have, right?
Yeah.
And that's also connecting you. That connects you kind of to all the students, and especially for the students that you specifically represent, the francophone students.
Yeah.
That especially connects you to all the francophone students. Like we all have this like shared experience. Okay, I kind of have to take all of that, and I'm gonna bring it with me in terms of like our next steps and like
Yeah.
what we actually do.
Yeah.
Taking all the pieces and trying to build something.
Yeah, like and not just in a way where it's like, you're not talking about it in an abstract sense,
Yeah.
right? Like you were mentioning before, like we had kind of like the big ideas, like you mentioned the big ideas, but also like the nitty gritty, the on the ground stuff, right? That's like what you're talking about because you actually went through it.
Yeah.
And now it's like we're living in it right now, and what are we gonna do next? And what are we gonna change, right? So it's like bringing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Jen?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, just because, it wouldn't be normally someone like me to say it. But anyways, so I'm a board member for the Federal Conservative Party for Nickel Belt. And I never thought in a million years that I would feel obliged to need to go to the student unions, Laurentian, et cetera, and explain to them what a union is and what the labor movement is and what how that worked. Like I just thought like this is a very, very, labor union oriented, what do you call it? City, sorry. So that I would have expected, because there's a lot of people that are active into their unions, including conservatives. May add, our entire board is practically, well, not only members of unions, but they're also like volunteer, et cetera, and work for them as well. But what I mean by that is just I was shocked because normally the stereotype is that they should know it and I should be, but I had to go, like I feel like I have to explain to them like, no, you're not their employee, you're not, you're allowed to speak, you have a voice, write, critique, sorry, but scream, it's your purpose. Like, have we not heard of the labor like that? I'm sorry, but that's the point. So, and I agree with you. I also found they did an excellent job, don't get me wrong, under the circumstances, and the ones that were there, trust me, I have spoken to them personally, and they've done a very good job on other things, but I would have wished there was a little bit more, breaking through the glass, screaming a little bit, or not screaming literally, but I mean, is like getting a message out. Yeah, a little bit, like you said, press releases, meetings, no. Now, is that going to change the world? Do unions and student unions automatically, have all the power in the world? No, but it's the point, it's the message, it's the intent that was missing. But I think we're going to get that this year, especially with me on as a student senator. Sorry. Au Sénat de l'Université Laurentienne, je vais vous supporter, je vais vous aider, mais je vais vous critiquer très, très, très fort. Donc, préparez-vous.
I heard from someone well known in the Francophone community up there in the political sphere that that they were disappointed with how the IAF handled things in terms of like, well, you could have spoken out a bit more about some things. And they made a comparison to, I think it was like the IIF that existed in like the 70s. They were telling me like, if this was like the 70s and we had that IIF at like that time, they would have started a riot,
Oh.
right? Because half, like we're talking half the programs, half, like that's not like 3 there, right?
Mhm.
That's a lot. That's a lot of programs. Just to take away half, the IIF would have been like, they would have tried to grab the moon in that sense. They would have tried to bring the moon down and crash it down, like like they would have. Anyways,
Especially since
Sorry,
students are very loud. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Normally, it's like at other universities, it's always, I call it the Montreal protest. They protest everything every 5 seconds, but they don't know what they're protesting. Normally, you have that. And here it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't want it to go to the radical extent, but I mean, just
I get what you mean.
enough
Yeah.
for communication dialogue, something like make your point heard,
Mm-hmm.
make your voice heard.
But again, from like very bottom student perspective, if we were stranded, like really, you're talking about
Mhm.
thousands of people who are completely stranded.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also isolated from the pandemic. We're also doing weird combinations of hybrid online. You have now cut away. We have no point of contact with our professors. There was like maybe a week where we could still contact them, a couple weeks.
Mhm.
Then the term was over and they're gone.
Mhm.
They're fired, they're done. We no longer have support. So at least if you have students feel that they have a representative, or at least a source of information or a place to ask questions. But the majority of students that I interacted with, we did not feel we had any point of like contact.
Yeah, I agree with that, and something it was a common theme that I found when speaking with people within student associations. I would try and like remind them of the importance of like what just happened. Like looking for a leader, right? That's what I was trying to do. I was looking for a leader to someone be like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually really not okay with that. But all I heard was kind of like, well, like it was low enrollment and like, like it wasn't profitable. And you listen to that and you're like, anyways, and you know what? It leads me into, coincidentally enough, question about profitability. And by the way, Kayla, if you're watching, thank you for these questions. Kayla Weiler from the CFS. Thank you. So I actually think this is going to be our last question, but it's a good one. So students have heard from Haché that the programs that were cut were not profitable and had low enrollment numbers, as I just mentioned. Now, does a program have to be profitable for it to have value? Andrew, what do you think?
Well, no. But to expand, I just like thinking about like the CCAA itself, like the act, right? This is like it's nuts to me because this is the first time it's ever been used on a public educational institution. So it's meant for corporations, meant for private corporations. But they pushed it through for this, so that allowed them to go through all the undemocratic, not transparent, like top-down approach to it. That let them do that, like the way that a corporation restructuring would. But as a student, and I'd love to hear. I'm not going to put words in anybody else's mouths. But as a student, like when I take my courses, whether it's at U of T and maybe you folks feel the same, like at LU. When you're taking the course, you're not thinking like, so am I getting my money's worth out of this? Is this course profitable? Looking around like, so how much money is this course making?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, wow, the thing that I'm studying right now is so interesting. I'm thinking, I can't wait till the next class because it's a class that I really wanted to take. Right. And that's kind of what's at the forefront of my mind. If I'm in the lecture hall, I'm looking at the presentation right in front of me. I'm having back and forth dialogue with my professor. I'm not thinking about, okay, so I'm on the job market right now. I mean, this is something we do have to eventually think about. But in that moment, I'm not thinking, okay, so I'm on the job market now. What's up? What's popping on the job market? Like, what's the top of the charts on the job market right now? Business communication or something like marketing.
Engineering.
Oh, guess I won't do the things that I'm interested in. I'll do that.
myself, right? I'm doing the things that I'm interested in because there's value to it,
Mhm.
right? But go ahead.
We'd like to go next.
I can go next. As the conservative in the room, I come with a mixed answer, and it's actually one that might surprise people. The first one is, just if you take the question again, just for if it's all about profit. The answer is partially yes, partially no, in the sense that one, do I believe the university, to avoid bankruptcy just in general, do they need to be smart about their plans and blah, 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 blah? Yes, do certain classes, should, if they have a demand for 100 classes, should they have 200 classes? No. But where I draw the line is like, you have to have options. If you're offering these programs, you have to have them fully built. You have to have the options for the required classes with enough diversity in them, like for class choices, etc. And then there's other things that we hit too for a university. Some departments are mandatory, whether you have 786,000 students or you have 3. Like a university without a math department, to me, doesn't make sense. Like, do you need a full math department with 6 to 7 classes per semester? Not necessarily, but you need the department. Does it need to be full staff with 35 professors? No, but to get rid of them is illogical. Same thing for you're hitting history and stuff, or like for this university in particular, quand vous voulez garder votre statut de bilingue, vous enlevez le département d'études françaises. Ça n'a pas de sens. So, it doesn't matter if you get rid of, again, did the department need, obviously these aren't real numbers, so, but, 50 professors and, 12 class choices per semester? No, that is unprofitable and just wouldn't make sense. And when you stand up, the teacher would be alone with no students. I get it. But, there's still a threshold that needs to be met.
Yeah.
So, one, you need to have options. You need to have if you're going to offer these programs, you better have them. And some programs are mandatory at university. It's embarrassing when you don't have them. Yeah. I'm sorry, but very teeny weeny universities up north and other places have these programs. So that's where you go. How do you not? Yeah. And whether you compare with other places in Canada, the United States, or the rest of the world, it's the same thing. This, I've never seen this before. This was pure, even on a financial point of view, strictly speaking, profit. Very, very bad decisions. I don't know. Sorry for your job, whoever was in charge of this, but not the best decisions on some of those things. Even speaking I'm not pro cutting, but I mean for someone who really needed to do the cuts and was for the reasons of profit, blah, 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 blah. The decisions that were made don't actually answer to that. They don't a lot. There was a much smarter plan that could have been taken that would have saved them, I'm sure, the same amount of money. Some people would have been hurt, blah, 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 but in a way that made a lot more sense than this. No math, no French, no history, no Indigenous studies, but want to be tricultural. It's illogical. Yeah. And that's the part that got me mad. Especially speaking from a financial point of view, it was this is the worst business decision I've ever seen in my life. There's cutting,
anti-Canadian.
There's cutting, there's restructuring, but then deleting, you're going, what, why? The point of that was what? And just to elaborate, I took German classes. I'm very fortunate. It's no longer offered, but a professor is willing to offer them to me, etc. I understand. So, yes, it sucks for other people that course is cut. Hopefully one day can come back. Now, this was before all this happened. So, it wasn't profitable for them. There wasn't that much of a demand. I understand they got rid of the class. But then, to go and say, we're getting rid of all language classes in university. I know it didn't happen, but I'm just saying, well, that's ridiculous. That's not saving money. That's not a thing about profit. That was just a bad decision. Yeah. So when we're talking about 1 or 2 classes, it's different. But when we're talking about an entire department, some of them are necessary to the functioning of other departments. Think math with the sciences for physics. I don't know what they're doing right now, but it's
the new engineering building.
Engineering without math and physics.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. It's I'm pretty savvy in terms of business knowledge and too, and if you think it almost feels as if they just looked at a balance sheet and it was just okay, well, that doesn't work, that doesn't make enough money to pay this teacher. But there's more to a business than just a balance sheet. It's also your reputation, right? Mm-hmm. Your kind of reputation, right? So it's sure, you got rid of all of these things and okay, well, you'll be able to pay your teachers better now, but what about long term your your chances of attracting students.
That's
right?
the biggest thing.
It doesn't make
It's almost
much
like they're
sense.
forcefully putting themselves into the ground. Like
Yeah.
if you wanted to like kill your business, that's what you do.
This
Make
is
sure
what-
no customers ever want to buy your product.
Exactly.
Right out of my
Done.
mouth.
Exactly.
Right out of my mouth. Good for you. 4+ on your ancestors. Like I mean
Right.
it right out. But Philippe, the thing is that you pointed out is that they didn't even do that. There wasn't even about a spreadsheet or anything that, though, to me anyways, that made sense in any way.
Yeah, I don't
Because
even think it was. a
Some
real-
programs
no.
stayed that have no students. Other programs were gone that had a lot of students.
Yeah.
And some programs had a lot of electives where the electives filled.
Yeah.
Like with a lot of students in class.
Yeah, so
They
it wasn't-
canceled that department. So it's not about, oh, well, this one, we average at, in the classes, let's say 50 students. This one, we only average at 10. Let's cut the one of 10 out. They didn't do that because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've taken class. I know what it is. And I'm sure the stats are out there. And actually we do know in some cases, some master's degrees with a lot of students were canceled. The other one that hasn't had a student in 3 years got to stay with the staff attached to it. Like that
Yeah.
makes no
I think
sense.
they got their stats and their balance sheets mixed up with their like children's kindergarten coloring crayon papers.
Yeah.
It must
Oh,
have.
my 25, great.
It must
10%,
have.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, if
I
I
don't
can,
think it was real.
Yeah,
if
I
I-
agree.
if I can add to that, I did. I mentioned it last night, but I did an interview for Laurentian Student Roundtable with a fired faculty member who's part of the committee as well, Thierry Bissonnette. And like we were saying, a reason that was cited was low enrollment, right? Low enrollment in the specialization of a program. But I asked him that flat out. I was like, was that your experience? Was there actually no students? And he told me, not surprisingly, he told me the opposite. He said that, yes, sure, there was a low amount of students enrolled in the specialization, but our courses were all elective courses. And actually the amount of kids in that class was increasing.
Mhm.
Like, it almost feels as if they didn't look in the right spot and they kind of used the specialization number as like a cheap way to kind of
Yeah,
get out and to say sayonara,
those were manufactured stats that someone made up exactly for their agenda. Certain
Yeah. Well, we've
agenda.
seen it with Option 3, like
Yeah.
the third option for the teachers college.
Oof.
Sorry, guys, but made up lies. And like we've seen it.
Unbelievable.
Oh, nobody applied for. I know 6 that applied. So why are you telling me that you needed 3 or whatever,
Mhm.
but then there were 6, but then you sent them a letter saying it wasn't enough people. Like
Yeah.
the process was lie after lie after lie, and that's the thing.
Half my class right now,
Mhm.
we're about 35 people in
Yeah.
in Option 2. Half my class wanted to enroll into that. That's like almost 20 kids that wanted to get into that program. So it's kind of hard to buy that argument,
Mhm.
And anyways,
But the same thing with equity, diversity, human rights. I compared side by side when I finally took about 6 months before the Dean of Arts got back to me with a list of how my course will be revised, my program.
Mhm.
I compared from what I had planned. I had 40 options, 42, I think, of courses that I could have taken that I was interested in.
Mhm.
Revised to that, I had 12.
Mhm.
And when at that particular term that I was registering, I had one. One option, only one.
Yeah.
So how do you have a whole program with only one option?
Of course.
And we're even talking about like requirements, not even just electives.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. If you talk about profitable, my comment is it profitable? Humanity is not profitable.
Yeah.
It's not profitable to be a human and to give birth and to raise children and to build homes. None of these things are really profitable things.
Yeah.
But that's the society we live in. We need doctors. We need people to cover every part of society,
Mhm.
right? Especially you think now during the time of pandemic, how can you not think about mental health? How can you not think about support for people with disabilities? How can you not think about access to education for people that live in rural communities? How can you not think about the older people who we're leaving to die in Ontario?
Mhm.
The numbers, sorry, it's a pandemic, that's the only we can do. How can you not care about the most essential parts of being human?
Yeah.
So profitability, maybe you need to like redefine what that means. It's not necessarily a number that you can calculate.
Yeah. What was the slogan from one of the speakers last night? Scholars, not dollars.
Yeah.
Who was it? Who
Scholars,
was it
not
that said
dollars.
that again?
Yeah.
Ah, right. The president of the retired
Laurentian.
faculty members of Laurentian. I don't know if I said that correctly, but that's a good it's a good way to sum it up, right? There's a, like Chad mentioned, there's a threshold between, sure, well, and you know what, like the money issue, like it's not like you're by yourself here. Like you're a publicly funded institution, and like your big brother there with the province, like it's kind of what he's there for, right? So, but anyways, did you have any?
Yeah, as Andrew said, I think the only profit here is about the student, because I am interested in this class. I need this class. I need education. So I matter. This class matter. My education matters, especially in political science.
Mhm.
I need classes. I need courses. So it doesn't matter if I'm the only person in the class. This is my program. I need this class to, continue to study.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
No, go, you put your hand up.
It was going to be
Rock, paper, scissors?
No, we'll fight.
It was-
Just kidding.
All right, let's go. We're not fighting. We're fighting others. So.
Yeah.
It's
Panel turn
PG-13.
wrestling
Yeah.
match.
Go
But
ahead.
no, it was actually going to be like slightly related to like I remember like something you said like when you were talking about even like the balance sheets. It's like and the enrollment. It's like no, like some of it you saw the numbers, you saw with your own eyes. Like it's totally made up.
Yeah.
Like because there were some. It's like
That
like
was the conversation. from
like
the beginning.
illogical.
It's
Like
made up.
like there were some courses that were like that I remember that the university used to applaud it. Like this is amazing. I might be getting my facts wrong here, but was environmental science cut?
Yes.
Yep.
It's
Environmental
like
science was
regreening after.
Was that the program that did the re-greening?
Yeah.
Everybody was like, I can't
Yeah.
believe LU did that. Wow, amazing.
That made Sudbury have the cleanest air in all of Canada.
Yeah,
By the way.
seriously. And
By
it's
the way.
like, but that was cut. And it's like, this
That
is a
also
program-
wouldn't be profitable to live
Yeah.
in Moonscape forever here in Sudbury
Yeah,
either.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's like, so literally, like you were saying, it's like part of it is like totally like illogical,
Yeah,
irrational.
illogical.
Like they did this, and
Just-
there was another like so there were some programs that were cut that had that sure they had low enrollment, but some had like steady enrollment,
Mhm.
and it was like some programs that were like these are programs that we would have that they used to champion, right?
Yeah.
And that they still were championing it. They still were championing it, but yet it was cut.
Mhm.
Or it
Indigenous
was-
studies.
Indigenous studies,
How
exactly.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whoever they hired, no offense to you, like for the people that were, selected and stuff, some of it I go like, it's just like, I spoke to people that directly deal like with this field and stuff, whether, they're, so I always pronounce the word wrong in English, or an economist,
Economist?
thank you. Or someone in finance, banking, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. And the question, that's not how you restart. Like, and whoever was like looking like, at the spreadsheets, I don't like you were saying with the specializations, look at specialization. Okay, but they should have known that they're dealing at a university and that's not what you look at.
Yeah.
You should have looked at overall enrollment, like things like that. It's the little technicalities where you're like, that person just didn't know the field enough to make that decision. I'm sure there's someone qualified in the country of 36 million, or we could have hired someone from another
Those
country.
kindergarten children with their crayons.
Yeah.
That would have been improved.
And the one thing too, je vais faire le commentaire vite, c'est le processus qu'ils ont choisi. Pour moi, c'est pas moi qui fais les lois ou que je fais les décisions, les choses comme ça, c'est pas ça que je dis, là, ou whoever qui est en charge. C'est qu'on l'a traité comme si ce serait une entreprise ou une école privée aux États-Unis.
Mhm.
On a mis à travers un système, comme j'ai dit, qui est pour une entreprise, mais c'est une école publique sous la province, donc il aurait dû avoir no moyen. I'm not talking about just bailing out the university just because they're under the province. That's not what I'm talking about. But there should have been something else because the system itself clearly doesn't work. So, but it was the first time it happened. C'était la première fois que ça allait arriver. Je comprends. But I hope if ever, God forbid, this happens anywhere else in the country or another institution or even other countries in the world, take note. That if it's a public university, not a private university, and it's not an enterprise, that you have a system in place for something like this, because what happened, it just didn't fit. And I'm speaking strictly from a like business, money, like government, political point of view, like never mind people for a minute, like the process itself doesn't work.
Mhm.
So they have to put something else in place. Faut que tu le fais pour comme quelque chose qui a de rapport avec le fait que c'est sous le gouvernement. Sont quand même, they're still accountable, sont quand même responsables. Parce que le système ici, là, juste parce que c'est pas une entreprise, ça marche pas comme ça. And also it has no place for something that's like, what if the Ministry of Environment, or I don't know if that's even a thing, but, went bankrupt? Like, how would that work? Would they still go through them? I hope not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, to me, it doesn't make much sense. And I'm talking both, obviously this touches the province, but I also mean federal in certain instances as well. So I don't know. I just hope they take notes. So take notes.
Yeah,
And they did not.
Yeah, well, take notes, folks. I think that basically sums it up for today. I think we kind of covered a lot of things. I'd like to thank you guys for coming here, and we spoke a lot tonight, or this evening, I should say. A lot of the common themes that I picked up was that we all want, basically, to bring it back to what the Tricultural Committee is about, right? We're not asking, like I love that comment you said earlier, we're not asking for the moon, right? We're asking for a just offering of post-secondary education.
That is reflective of the reality of the Canadian population,
Yeah.
of Sudbury's population, at the very least.
Yeah.
With many potential votes, may I add. And I'm speaking to all three parties here. They've all had a little bit of chit chatter because I'm more on the federal side, but even provincially, with the three, there is chit chat, but it's true. Some of them more than others. Others, we've been surprised with their statements, but just expecting a little bit more. But I'm surprised because I would have expected, and I need all of them to jump on the boat. Be like, oh no, it's us. Oh no, it's us. No, we want to help more. No, we want to help more. Whether it's true or not, again, when I'm talking about all political parties are responsible for this, but getting the vote with a good image, we haven't even seen that yet. So I don't know if it's because of this, or if they're waiting for that to end, or they're waiting for the provincial elections. But to me, that makes no sense. Like, I'm surprised we didn't see like all three. Like, I would expecting both in Ontario and federally, like them practically like choking each other, going, no, I'm going to do more. No, I'm going to do more, and like fighting each other. We haven't seen that. So be more like the parliaments in Europe, and maybe have a little bit more discussions on it and fight on who's going to help better. That's what I would like to see between all of them, including my party.
Professor Will Moran's last night, his humanity on Mount Olympus. We call for humanity. Mount Olympus. Come on.
That sums it up pretty well, I would say. Where can we sign the declaration, Monique? Where do we get access to that?
Right there.
There are copies of the declaration here. It's also available on the internet. And Ruben, if you're listening, maybe you can put the link to the declaration on the SOS page to Save Our Sudbury.
Okay. So if you are in agreement with anything we just spoke about, or you're interested, in this very complex situation, let's say, and you'd like to stand with us and to write your name, you can sign the declaration with us. I'm full disclosure, I'm a member of the Tricultural Committee, but Andrew is as well. They are not. They were invited today, and thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed our discussion. Merci à tous. Thank you for watching. And I think that sums it up. Did any of you guys want to add anything before we go? No? All right. Excellent.
Okay.
Good evening.